Hi, I'm Ari, I'm the Oak Witch, and today's video is going to be all about how to read tarot. So for those who don't know, tarot is a method of cartomancy divination, and there are 78 cards. These 78 cards are split into two parts. So there's the Major Arcana, which is a set of 22 cards that are essentially archetypes. And there are the Minor Arcana cards, which are a further 56 cards split into 4 suits. Each suit has a set of cards from 1 to 10 and then 4 further court cards. And every card has a specific meaning, but before we get into that, what does tarot actually do? So tarot cards kind of act as a mirror for self-reflection, I like to think of it as. The cards essentially display something which is already inside you and you already sort of know, and it just helps bring that out. Tarot can answer any questions you may have about yourself or a situation or someone else. And it does these two things by tapping into your subconscious. Tarot can also connect you to the divine. It can connect you to spirits. You can receive messages from your spirit guides, your ancestors or deities. But yeah, there's so many different things that tarot can do. It's such a complex form of divination, which is why it's so loved by witches everywhere. So because it has such a long history, there are quite a few misconceptions which I want to just clear. Yes, you can buy your own cards. I don't even know where this misconception really began. I don't know what it comes from, but there's this whole thing where apparently you can't buy your own tarot deck. Apparently someone has to give it to you. This is not true. Buy your own tarot deck. It's fine. Don't worry about it. If anything, I tend to think that you'd sort of want your own tarot deck. You want to pick it so you know you can connect with it, you know that it's going to work for you. So there's that. A second misconception, which I think stems from witch talk, which I do not like, but that aside. Apparently tarot is a closed practice. It's not, by the way. But yeah, I don't know where that comes from. Because it has such a deep and complex history. Seen in many different cultures. It's not a closed practice, don't worry about it, it's fine. And then the third misconception, which I've actually had people tell me before, after being in the practice so many years, I've had people say, oh, don't play with tarot cards, you know, they'll mess up your life. This again is just not true. Tarot cards can't mess up your life, they're just cards. Don't get me wrong, they're very mystical and very useful as a form of divination and sacred in their own right, but just because I pull a bad card doesn't mean I'm doomed for life. That's not how it works. Yeah, I think people who say this are just fear-mongering and trying to scare people, and yeah, that's just not true. Tarot can't mess up your life or anyone else's life, so don't worry about it, it's fine. So now that I've cleared some misconceptions, let's go into how to actually read tarot. There are many different ways you can deduce meaning from a tarot card. It all works differently for different people, but I want to go through some baseline things about cards which will help you deduce the meaning from the card yourself. So the first obvious one, I guess, is image symbolism. So if we look at a tarot card, immediately you're gonna see images. You're gonna see imagery, a painting, symbolism within the card. For some witches, that's all you need. It's an intuitive tarot reading right there. All you really need is the image for some people, but let's break it down. So to deduce meaning from image symbolism, it uses, you know, intuition, but also a degree of like study. Outside of tarot research, I recommend getting like a book of symbols, not even necessarily this one, but just a book or an encyclopedia of different symbolism throughout history, mythological symbols, religious symbols. Yeah, this one goes through so many symbols, their meanings, their historical and mythological meaning. It will help you pretty much get a grip of basic symbols that are seen throughout mysticism, esoteric practices, occult studies, etc. It will help you sort of like identify them. So I recommend getting something like that because it will help you when you're looking at symbols within a tarot card. So if we're going to look at the High Priestess card, this is the Brady Tarot deck. Now immediately when you're looking at the images, I can see an owl, which is known for symbolizing wisdom, you know, the wise old owl. We can see the moon behind this veil, so the moon in itself usually represents your intuition, again with the wisdom, the inner reflection. Veil itself presented in front of the moon can symbolize perhaps needing to go behind the veil, so go behind that curtain, tap into that subconscious, below the surface as it were. So there's little things like that you can deduce about the card itself. Just the basic images that you see in front of you can help you get the meaning straight away. So let's look at a different card. Well, this is the Nine of Feathers. Straight away obviously we could see the word conflict, and that can give you a meaning in itself, but not every tarot deck has the words written on the card. Straight away looking at the picture, you can see one hummingbird looking very defensive, on the attack to another hummingbird who, judging by the facial expression, looks a bit surprised, taken aback, not confrontational, not matching that other one's energy. If you look down onto the cacti, you can see feathers stuck into the actual plant. From here, I see it as those feathers belong to that over defensive hummingbird. So I see in the process of being over defensive, you end up, and overprotective, you end up actually hurting yourself on the cacti, when there was no need to be in the first place, you know. So I think there's that message of, is this conflict something that is actually benefiting you, or are you harming yourself in the process? And that you can just get from the image alone. This point itself is probably why I don't tend to go for minimalistic decks or simple decks, because they do nothing for me in terms of intuitive reading. I can't get anything from them. That's why I really like sort of messy, busy, colourful decks. The second way in which you can deduce meaning from a tarot card is numerology. And these points can kind of combine together, right? So when you're looking at, for example, this card is the Six of Swords. Six in itself to me has always corresponded with like healing, responsibility, protection, harmony. There's different things, but to me that's what I sort of have always garnered from 6 as a meaning of the number. That meaning combined with perhaps the image of the butterfly I see on the card. That butterflies usually symbolize transformation, change, but to me also they symbolize like recovery, self-recovery, and healing. So the meanings there match up for me. And looking at the image symbolism for this card, going back to the prior point, we can see two cliff faces and a bridge between them. So this represents a journey, you know, a path to cross, a necessary bridge to cross. But the bridge itself is made up of swords, so maybe this will signify that it's going to be a difficult bridge to cross, but a necessary one to get to the other side. So combining that idea of healing with the 6, the responsibility and protection, with the symbolism of that card, the necessary bridge to cross, you can sort of paint a picture for what that meaning is sort of presenting to you. And of course this will obviously depend on the context for, you know, the intention you're going into this tarot reading about. Using the prior example of the High Priestess card, you can see that this owl is standing between two pillars. That idea of 2 usually represents duality, balance, decisions, you know, having to make a choice. So this can definitely coincide with the meaning and the images. So you could perhaps garner from this card that there's a choice that you need to make, but you need to use your intuition. You can tap into that inner wisdom in order to solve it. So the third way in which you can deduce meaning from a tarot card is looking at the minor arcana suit. Now of course this is only relating to minor arcana cards, but of course they take up quite a larger proportion of the deck. The suits themselves can correlate with elements. So swords correspond with air, pentacles correspond with earth, cups with water, and wands with fire. And the elements themselves have their own meanings. So air can correspond with your thoughts, your beliefs, your attitudes, and in general things to do with the mind. Earth can correspond to materialistic items, abundance, prosperity, consequences of actions potentially. Water refers to your emotions, so this can also be communication, this can be relationships that you have with your friends, your loved ones, your family. And finally, fire can correspond to your ambition, your drive. This is thought in action, and so on. So you can see that the suits themselves can definitely be an indicator for a certain approach to the message you are receiving. So again, using a prior example, if we look at the Six of Swords, we've already established that there is a journey here, there is a process of transformation, perhaps towards a healing journey. But because it's the Six of Swords, perhaps there needs to be a change in attitudes, in your thoughts, in order to actually cross that bridge. So there we have it. Those are three things that I think are pretty much the baseline foundations in order to get meaning from a card. So we have the image symbolism, we have the numerology, and then we have the suit relating to the minor arcana. So when you're actually starting to read tarot and get into tarot readings and practice, it can get quite complicated. So I want to go through some general advice that may help you. When you're first getting into tarot, my first tip would be to put the cards in order, so the number order from major arcana and then the different suits, and just read them like a book. Go through the card imagery, and like we discussed prior, just try and identify symbols and recognize, oh, that is the Six of whatever, and get a feeling of what that immediately jumps out to you. If it helps, perhaps actually as you're reading through the cards, just write down notes of what comes to mind when you're looking at the card. For example, first card of the Prisma Visions Tarot deck, you can see the Fool. I see a cloudy sky, I see a crescent moon, I see a life ring, I see the sea, and I see a stork, or I think that's a stork, I see a bird at least. So you can jot those things down and just be like, huh, what does that mean to me? Blah, blah, blah. And go through that each card. If not, just do it in your head. After you've gone through them by yourself, then you could actually just read the guidebook that most tarot decks come with and see what the actual author of the tarot deck has to say about the meanings, and you'd be surprised, perhaps actually it matches up to what you already thought. My second tip for getting into tarot readings is to start with like a card a day, and I would personally suggest doing it in the evening. I tend to find that people who start with like a card in the morning have a sort of bias then for the rest of the day. If you end up pulling like a really bad card, not that I think bad cards exist in the deck, but if you get what I mean, you tend to then be like, oh gosh, something's gonna happen. That's why I tend to do it in the evening, so then you can ask, oh, what can I learn from today? And then there's more chance for self-reflection. So I'd say start with a card a day, but do it in the evening. My third tip for getting into tarot readings is to actually study the cards. What I did last year is I got out all my tarot decks. If you only have one, that's fine, but I laid out my tarot decks side by side and looked at what each card in each deck looked like and matched with them and mirrored what the symbolism, what was consistent. And then I cross-referenced a whole bunch of sources. So if you have books on tarot, then that's a great resource. There are also free resources online. There's loads of websites that list the meanings. Labyrinthos and Brady Tarot immediately come to mind. And yeah, just cross-reference information. See what different sources say about the card, and then you write down a general sort of like card guide. And then you can put it in your book of shadows. And that's what I have on me. And it really helps with getting to know the meanings of the cards. And yeah, the last thing I want to say is when it comes to doing larger spreads, they're always fun to do, but I always tend to find that it can make things a bit more complicated than it needs to be. So I wouldn't say start with them if you're only just getting into tarot, because single card drawings, 3-card drawings, they can be just as like powerful and potent in their meanings. Like if anything, I find them to be a bit more, like a bit better for me. That's just me personally though. I tend to view it as if I get like a major arcana pull with separate minor arcanas, I tend to find that the major arcana is the like deeper message overall, and then the minor arcanas can kind of back that up. That's just how it kind of works in my brain. So that could be a sort of a general rule of thumb that you might want to follow, but do your research on different spreads and different ways in which people practice tarot, and then you can for yourself get a good feel of how tarot works for you, and it will personalize your practice a lot more. So yeah, I hope my advice has been helpful. If you have any more questions, if you want to run through tarot card meanings to me, you can join my Discord server, which I have linked below, and we can have a chat about it. I can help you more if you want, we can help each other. So yeah, come talk to me there if you have any more questions. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye!